People who don't know your story, can you tell us about your awakening to plant-based nutrition? What happened to you?
About 10 years ago, I had a heart attack, and I was at NYU Medical Center. They inserted a stent and held me overnight for observation. While I was in the ICU, I was watching CNN, and I saw Bill Clinton being interviewed by Dr. Sanjay Gupta, the quote unquote house physician on CNN. And Clinton had lost about 30 pounds. And Dr. Gupta asked him what was happening, what was behind that weight loss. And Clinton said that after he had left the White House, he had had quadruple bypass surgery. And for a while, everything was fine. But then he started getting chest pains again. And he went back to the cardiologist at Columbia Presbyterian that had operated on him. And they basically told him that there was not much they could do for him. The nature of his situation and previous procedures that had been done on his graft vessels left him in a situation where there was pretty much no option. And he asked his staff to research what else was out there. And they came across that famous book by Dr. Esselstyn, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And he talked about this book, how amazing it was, the pictures that were in there that were unbelievable, arteries opening up, blood flow being reinstated, sometimes in as little as 3 weeks. And here I am in the hospital having just had a heart attack. Wow. And a stent insertion. So this couldn't have been more timely. Now, for most of my life, I had been a vegetarian. From age 18 on, I had been a vegetarian. I was 62 at the time of this heart attack. So it's quite a few years as a vegetarian, but I still had a heart attack. And the food at that time at the hospital had the menu, they had no vegetarian items. All the food on the menu was perfectly designed to put you into the hospital and prevent you from getting out. My wife went out on First Avenue looking for a place where she could buy some vegetarian food while I'm listening to this interview of Clinton. And Clinton talked about how this was a plant-based diet. He had lost 30 pounds in 90 days. He said he hadn't felt this good since he was a teenager. And I called my wife on her cell phone and I said, forget the food, get the book. And she went to Barnes and Nobles and picked up the book, came back to the hospital. And when I read Dr. Esselstyn's presentation, I immediately understood that what had done me in was all the cheese and dairy products and eggs and processed oils and processed foods, all of that. And I immediately, that morning, I was 100% plant-based. And
that's amazing.
My wife as well.
What
That's
timing.
how it began. Right.
What timing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So fast forward to last week. What did you eat for Thanksgiving? What was on your table?
What did I eat for Thanksgiving? So quinoa, peppers stuffed with rice, tofu, and other foods, plant-based. Right?
Amazing. That's great. Who does the cooking? Do you help out or?
I help a little bit, mostly my wife. She's a phenomenal cook. She's amazing.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. So since this moment of awakening for you, when you really dove right in, the theme that runs through all of your work is about disease reversal. I know we spoke about this a little on the phone when we chatted earlier. And many of the doctors that we work with prefer to be somewhat conservative about using the R word, reversal. instead using a different R word, remission, but they also don't want to overpromise that all diseases can be reversed. I think there's something important, though, about the bold statement that we use when we talk about disease reversal. What draws you to making that kind of a bold statement in how you've,
It's a very good question. Okay. Because you'll find a certain theme in my activities, and that theme is disease reversal. Because when I saw the book by Dr. Esselstyn, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, prevent is pretty trite. A lot of people, a lot of talk, a lot of books, programs, and so forth, focusing on disease prevention. But disease reversal is almost a shocker. Who ever heard of reversing heart disease, reversing cancer, reversing rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, on and on? And most doctors refuse to entertain the thought that disease, chronic disease, can be reversed. But the fact is that it is reversible. As far as I'm concerned, if you have certain biomarkers for a disease, and those biomarkers go in the opposite direction, you reverse them. And if those biomarkers for the disease disappear completely, as often happens, you've reversed the disease. There's no disease indication in the body anymore.
That's right. Right. So tell our viewers about some of the projects that you have been a part of launching in service to the idea of disease reversal.
Well, after I had that awakening at the NYU Medical Center, when my wife bought the book back, the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, I immediately became plant-based, whole food plant-based. Within 60 days, I lost 20 pounds, 25 pounds. My biomarkers did a flip-flop. So my cholesterol went from 215 to 145. My LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, went from 140 to 89. My C-reactive protein, which is the marker for inflammation, went from 3.4, which is considered the red zone, to 0.6, which is considered the green zone. All of this within 60 days. I went back to NYU for a follow-up checkup. And when the physicians there saw my data, they couldn't believe it. There are no medicines that will produce that kind of a turnaround in biomarkers. And they asked me what I was doing, and I told them. And I showed them Dr. Esselstyn's book. I said, don't you people know about this? And they said, no, we never heard of it. So I bought a copy of the book for each and every one of them. And I also bought them a copy of the film Forks Over Knives, which I thought was a fabulous film. And then I asked them, what clinical studies have been done between a whole food plant-based diet and some kind of controlled diet for cardiovascular disease patients? And they came back and they said, basically none. So I said, I'm prepared to fund a study. Let's talk about it. And we eventually got to a point where we designed, not me, the physicians, but I added some thoughts. And we designed a study that measured C-reactive protein. And on the one hand, the patients would be in a plant-based diet for 8 weeks. And the other control group would be on the American Heart Association diet that is recommended for cardiovascular disease patients. Now, it was only an 8-week study, but people in the plant-based group had 4 times the reduction of C-reactive protein than the people in the American Heart Association diet group. Anytime you put people on a diet, if it's discipline, you're going to see some improvement. So people on the AHA diet saw a slight reduction in their CRP, but people on the plant-based diet saw 4 times the reduction in an 8-week period. The research was published in the Journal of the American Heart Association and was also written up by the Wall Street Journal. Got quite a bit of attention.
Fantastic. Kudos to you for finding a hole and filling it. And you've done this in so many other ways too. And I'm curious if you could share, what your vision for the future of the field of whole food plant-based nutrition. What do you want to see happen? What are you doing personally to activate this vision?
Well, I'd like to see as many people as possible on the planet become whole food plant-based, because that is the healthy way to live. It's healthy for individuals. It's healthy for the planet. As you probably know, the industrial farming of animals produces a great deal of greenhouse gases, more than the entire transportation sector, is what I understand. So it's good for the planet, it's good for the human beings, and it's good for the animals. It's a win-win all the way. So I very much would like to see more and more people become plant-based.
That's great. And you've been working closely with, I know, Dr. Stoll at the Plantathon Project and with the International Journal of Disease Reversal. Any other projects that you want to share about that you've been working on? Your
Yes.
film, your book?
Yeah, the book. So Dr. Stoll and I co-authored a book that we think is really needed. Everybody needs inspiration and encouragement. It's not easy to convert to a whole plant food lifestyle if you've grown up eating meat and animal products and processed foods. So we put together a book that contains 36 stories. The book's title is Disease Reversal Hope: Real People, Real Stories. So these are stories, 36 of them, that were contributed by people that had a variety of chronic diseases: cancer, heart disease, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, asthma, obesity, depression, on and on. And they tell their story. They tell the story of how they had a horrible disease, all sorts of medications and treatments that did not work. But when they converted to a whole plant food lifestyle, their ailments went away. They reversed the disease. The book, it's selling well. We decided to do a movie. So we have a movie called Disease Reversal Hope, the film, and it contains interviews of some of these story contributors, and they're quite gripping, very emotional, very gripping. I would urge your constituents to see the movie. You can find the movie on Amazon, on Apple iTunes, and other outlets, and it's quite gripping.
That's wonderful. And our book group has read your book and really enjoyed the diversity of the stories in there. Yeah. So I want to wrap up our conversation, Dan, by asking you the question we're asking all of our speakers. What's one thing that you're doing to keep a sense of positivity and purpose in today's challenging world?
I'm reading my book. It's not my story. It's 35 other stories. My story is in there also, but there's 35 very inspirational stories by people who were at the bottom of the barrel. They had lost all hope. Some of them attempted suicide. They were that desperate. And they found a way to revive hope, to turn their life around. Right at the bottom, they began climbing up. And it's extremely inspirational.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. You bring us hope in your actions and in your leadership. We thank you for everything that you've done and look forward to really achieving this vision of disease reversal for so many more people. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.